What is up, everybody? How you doing? Today I'm going to be giving my NBA 2015-2016 predictions, all the regular season seedings up to the playoffs and to the finals. I'm using PowerPoint, but I thought this is the best way I could display it. So here we go. Okay. So the Eastern Conference, 15 seed. Got the 76ers. Not a huge surprise. They're not a great team. They did pick up Jahlil Okafor. I do think he'll be a pretty good player, possibly Rookie of the Year. But I don't think he's going to elevate this team to be, any better than they already are, which is not good. So I see them being the 15 seed. I'm not going to talk much about the 9 through 15 seeds. So yeah, at the 14 seed I have the Orlando Magic. Again, not a great roster. Tobias Harris, he's probably their best player. He's pretty good. Oladipo's good. I didn't like their pick. They picked Mario. I can't pronounce his last name, but I think they could have picked someone better. I didn't like that pick. So yeah, I don't see the Magic doing too good this season. Sorry, Magic fans. 13th seed, we have the Brooklyn Nets. I know last season they did make the playoffs, but that's not too hard when you're in the Eastern Conference. But the Eastern Conference did get a little better this year, and the Nets, they're not that good. They also lost Darren Williams. He went to the Mavs, and their best player is obviously Brook Lopez. Joe Johnson's he's not that special. He's not that good. So, yeah, I don't see the Nets going too far this season. The 12th seed, I have the New York Knicks. Now, the Knicks, they're not that great. I mean, they do have Carmelo Anthony, probably a top 10 player in the league, but he can't carry this team. Porzingis, they picked. I think he'll be decent, but dealing with the Knicks roster, they really have nothing to show except for Carmelo Anthony. I mean, I'm looking at their roster now. They did get Aaron Aflalo, and they got, who else did they get? They got, was the other Robin Lopez? That's it. Robin Lopez. That was another decent pickup for them, but I do think they'll do a tiny bit better than last season. I think last season they're the 14th seed, so I think they'll be the 12th seed this year. But it's nothing great. Moving on to the 11th seed, I see the Charlotte Hornets. Frank Kaminsky. They picked up Frank Kaminsky in the draft. He was from Wisconsin. They went to the finals, and they lost to Duke. But he was very big for them. And this roster, they got Big Al, obviously, Kemba Walker, Kid Gilchrist. They pick up Jeremy Lin. They also got Nick Batum, and they can be decent, but I don't see him going too far again. Like I said, I don't want to talk too much about these teams. 10th seed, I see the Detroit Pistons. They made a run last season once they traded Josh Smith, and they started beating a ton of good teams. But then Jennings, he hurt himself, and then they started sucking again. But I could see them doing pretty decent next year. With they did lose Monroe, but Reggie Jackson was a big signing. They did overpay him a little, but whatever. That's on them. So yeah, 10th seed for the Detroit Pistons. The 9th seed, just missing the playoffs, is the Boston Celtics. Now I'm gonna tell you none of this video is biased because I am a Celtics fan, and it hurts when your team's not that good. So yeah, I don't see my Celtics making the playoffs. They did make it last season, but the Eastern Conference did get a little stronger this year. so I don't think the Celtics are going to make it again. It's unfortunate to be a Celtics fan. But moving on to the top 8. The 8th seed, I have the Pacers. Obviously, Paul George coming back. He did play the last few games of the season last year, but they limited his minutes to less than 20 minutes. But I think he's going to come back a beast next season. Fully healed, probably play 30 to 40 minutes a game. I'm pretty sure he made a statement saying he wants to be MVP this season. I do think it's possible. But we'll just have to wait and see. The Pacers also got Monte Ellis, so that's a good pickup for them. But they did lose, Roy Hibbert, David West. But I still think they can make the playoffs at the 8th seed. 7th seed, I have the Raptors. The Raptors, they lost some players, they gained some players. They lost Lou Williams, 6th man of the year. He was very good for them. And they gained Amari Carroll. But I don't know about the Raptors. I don't think they're a very good team. I don't know how far they'll go in the playoffs. They did get swept last year by the Wizards. But looking at the roster now, they do have, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. Those are pretty good players. They lost Amir Johnson. I'm looking at their gains. Yeah, they gained Damari Carroll and Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett's nothing. He was a bust. But yeah, I see the Raptors as the 7th seed. Moving on to 6th seed, I have the Wizards. They lost Paul Pierce. That was huge for them. He was their closer. He made clutch shots in the playoffs last season. But John Wall is amazing. One of my favorite point guards in the league. He's very good. I think he led last season in assists, if I'm not wrong. But John Wall is amazing. Probably a top 15 player in the league. And then they got Bradley Beal, Nene, Martin Gortat. They're a pretty decent roster. I see him being a 6th seed in the East, sorry. Moving on to the 5th seed, I got the Bulls. I know most people rank the Bulls in the top 3 of the East, but Derrick Rose, man, keeps hurting himself. He's not very reliable. And he's their star player when healthy, but you can't count on Derrick Rose being healthy. You really can't. So I think they'll be a 5th seed because I think the 4 teams above the name after them are going to be better. And the 4th seed may be a surprise. The Milwaukee Bucks. I think they're a very young team, and they got a huge pickup of Greg Monroe from the Pistons. And I did read about how they have the tallest starting 5. Their starting point guard, I believe, is Michael Carter-Williams. He's 6'7". And then at their shooting guard, they have Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's 6'11". And then their small forward, Jabari Parker. He's probably 6'8". Their 4, I believe, is Chris Middleton. He's 6'10". And then Greg Monroe at the center. He's either 6'11" or 7 feet, something like that. So yeah, they have the tallest starting 5 in the league. They're all young players. Jabari Parker is coming back off of injury. He was my pick for Rookie of the Year over Wiggins until he got hurt. So him coming back is going to be huge. The addition of Greg Monroe. I think the Bucks will be a pretty good team next year. Moving on to the 3rd seed, Miami Heat. The Heat, they made some impressive moves. Getting Goran Dragic at the end of the season last year. Last 20 games or something. Mari Stoudemire, decent pickup, I guess. He's not the same as he was in Phoenix, but he's still a decent player off the bench that can give you some points. And then obviously Hassan Whiteside, who came out of nowhere last year and became a pretty good player. He he put his name out there with what he's doing. Huge improvement. Nice story for what he had to come from. And then obviously they just steal in the draft. They got Justice Winslow. That's huge for them. And then obviously D Wade, Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh is coming back from injury. He had something wrong with his lungs last year, so he's coming back. D Wade is healthy. They got a pretty decent starting five. You know, Dragic at the 1, D Wade at the 2. Who would be their 3? I'm not sure. Maybe Winslow and then Chris Bosh at the 4 and Hassan Whiteside at the 5. It's a pretty decent starting 5. I think the Heat will do pretty good next season. At the 2nd seed, we got the Hawks. Obviously, the Hawks surprised everyone last season, being the 2nd best team in the league, running away with the East. You know, their squad is pretty much the same as last season, except Amari Carroll. He was a pretty key player for them, but I still think the Hawks can pull off another similar run to like they did last year. You know, Budenholzer, great coach of the year. The Hawks, they play like the Spurs. I mean, they don't have the same roster as the Spurs, obviously, but they have a similar play style. So I think the Hawks, a lot of people think they're going to drop. They won't do the same thing they did last year. I think they can. I think they can do the same thing, except they won't be the best. I mean, I'm sure all of you saw this coming. 1st seed, obviously, is going to be the Cavs. You know, no doubt. LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, they're coming back off of injury. So that's going to be huge. I think now that this is their 2nd season together, they're going to have more team chemistry and everything. Timothy Mozgov was very good. Very good center for them. But they got like halfway through the season last year. Tristan Thompson, they re-signed Tristan Thompson, so that's big for them. He was probably their 2nd best player in the finals last year, without Love and Kyrie. So yeah, Cavs most likely going to be the 1st seed. Moving on to the Western Conference, the much better Western Conference. This was a little bit harder, but we're not going to focus on the 9 through 15 seed too much. So the 15 seed, I had the Denver Nuggets. I don't really want to talk about the Nuggets too much. They're just not a good team. Kenneth Faried, he's a beast, you know. I like Emmanuel Mudiay that they got in the draft, but the Nuggets, they're not gonna go too far. That's just my opinion. And before I go to the 14th seed, this is probably the biggest change. Biggest change out of everything. The 14th seed, yeah, it's the Trailblazers. The last, since they had LaMarcus Aldridge, they've been a playoff team every year. But since they lost him, they're going down a lot. They lost LaMarcus, they lost Wesley Matthews, they lost Batum. They lost their whole starting 5 except Damian Lillard. Lillard, don't get me wrong, he's really good, probably a top 20 player, but he's not going to be able to carry the Trailblazers by himself, So, yeah, this is probably the biggest drop in the standings. Trailblazers moving down. I think they'll be the 14th seed. 13th seed, we got the Sacramento Kings. They did get Rondo. They did get Willie Cauley-Stein in the draft. Obviously they already have Rudy Gay and Boogie. DeMarcus Cousins, definitely the best center in the league, but I don't know, he's obviously very good, but I don't know how him and Rondo will, mesh together. It could be good, could be, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, but I don't see the Kings being too high of a seed, so I have them at 13. 12th seed, I do think the Timberwolves will move up a little bit from last year. From the 15th seed, I think they can be a 12th seed. They will improve a little bit. Kevin Garnett, obviously, he's not the same Kevin Garnett he was in his prime, but he is definitely he's like going to be a coach on the floor pretty much. Put up a few points, put up a few rebounds, maybe 20 minutes a game. But he can definitely get this young team together. Teach them a lot. He can teach Karl Anthony Towns, who they got at the first pick. You can definitely teach him a lot. Wiggins, obviously rookie of the year last year. I think he can be a superstar one day. So I think the Timberwolves will be a little bit better next year. But not too much to say about them. 11th seed, I have the Utah Jazz. Jazz did make a little bit of a run last year, but they're still, their roster's nothing great. Best players probably, I don't even know. What's his name? Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward's pretty good. Trey Burke's pretty good. Dante Exum, he didn't do too great. Maybe he'll do a little bit better this year, but they did get rid of Enes Kanter. But once they got rid of him, Rudy Gobert started. He can be pretty good. I think he has more potential, but I don't see the Jazz making the playoffs anytime soon. So I put them at 11. The 10th seed, we have the Lakers. The Lakers, they have an interesting starting five. I like it personally. Let me read it off. It's D'Angelo Russell at the point guard, who they got in the draft this year. He was very good at Ohio State. I loved watching him. He has pretty good potential to maybe be a star once Kobe retires at the end of the year. Maybe he can maybe not take over. He's not going to be the same thing as Kobe was, but he can be good. At the 2, they have Jordan Clarkson. He was pretty good last year for his rookie year. Probably the second best rookie last year, after not including Jabari Parker when he hurt himself. Then they got Kobe, obviously. He'll be at the 3. If Kobe can stay healthy, that'd be good. This team could, maybe not make the playoffs. I don't know. I doubt they'll make the playoffs. That's why I have them at 10. Their who's their, Julius Randle, who hurt himself in the first game last year. First game, was out for the rest of the season. But I think he can be pretty good. He's coming back this year. And then at the 5th, the center, they have Roy Hibbert. That was a pretty good pickup for them. I know during the playoffs the year before, with him and the Pacers, he just all of a sudden started to suck, which I didn't understand. He's 7'2". He couldn't grab a rebound, but I think he can change. I think he can be his old self again, start grabbing points, boards again. And they got pretty good pickups this year. They got Lou Williams, Brandon Bass, Meta World Peace signed again. They have an interesting bench, interesting starting five. I'd like to see how it plays out. So I had the Lakers at 10. The 9th seed, we have the Mavs. The Mavs, they lost a lot. Dirk's still Dirk, but he's old, getting old. Obviously one of the greatest scorers of all time, but who did they lose? They lost Tyson Chandler, Monta Ellis, Rondo, even though Rondo wasn't, much for them. But they did gain Wesley Matthews, I think. But I don't think the Mavs will be a playoff team this year. That's just my opinion. Moving on to the top 8. Phoenix Suns. I like the Suns. I think the Suns will definitely be a playoff team this year. they did come close last year, but they added Tyson Chandler, Eric Bledsoe. I think they re-signed him. Yeah, they did. Brandon Knight. They have a serious chance of making the playoffs, no doubt, in the Wild West. But I don't think they'll make it too far once the playoffs start. But yeah, I do see the Suns making the 8th seed. 7th seed, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. Obviously, Anthony Davis, my pick for MVP this year. He's a beast. He is insane. He is so good. But like aside of Anthony Davis, their roster, they have a lot of missing pieces. Drew Holiday's pretty good. Ryan Anderson's pretty good. Norris Cole's pretty good. Who am I missing? Tyreek Evans, obviously, he's pretty good. But Anthony Davis is an animal. But he can't make them like a top 4 team. They just don't have enough pieces. Moving on to the 6th seed, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies have always been a good team. Well, not always, but past like 5 years or so. Marc Gasol, Zebo. My favorite point guard, Mike Conley. He's awesome. They have Jeff Green, Courtney Lee. They have a pretty good roster, but even in the Western Conference, it's still not the best because the teams here are good. But yeah, so I see the Memphis Grizzlies at 6. Moving on, top 5. It started to get hard for me. Started to get hard to make this list, but at the 5th seed we have the Houston Rockets. I thought Ty Lawson was a good pickup for them. But Dwight Howard, he missed like half the season last year due to injury. Who knows how it will be next season, if he can stay healthy. It's a big question mark, but obviously James Harden, another MVP candidate. He one of the best scorers in the league. We know about James Harden. We know what he can do. So that's why I see the Rockets at the 5th seed. Like I said, once it got to the top 5, it became hard for me to order these. The 4th seed, the Golden State Warriors. I have a feeling a few people might have a problem with this because they were the best team in the league last year. They were the 1st seed. They did have I think 66 wins, but they're pretty much the same roster as last year, except they lost David Lee. It's not a huge loss. I still think they'll be good, but I don't know. I don't think they can do the same thing again because the 3 teams I'm about to list that they were better than last year. These 3 teams, they're not the same as last year. They're all getting something that they didn't have last year, and I'm about to explain that. So moving on to the 3rd seed, the Clippers. What did the Clippers get? What didn't the Clippers get? The Clippers got Paul Pierce, Josh Smith, Lance Stevenson. They re-signed DeAndre Jordan. Obviously, that whole thing with DeAndre Jordan moving on to Dallas and then back to the Clippers. But the Clippers, man, they have a legit team. Their bench, their starting 5, their coach, everything's looking good for them. Top 3 team in the West for sure, in my opinion. Moving on, 2nd seed, Oklahoma City Thunder. They didn't make the playoffs last year, but I'm sure we all know why. They didn't have Kevin Durant. But Russell Westbrook was a beast in Kevin Durant's absence. I mean, Russell Westbrook's always been a beast, but he just showed a new him once KD was gone. He's trying to carry the team. He almost did. They tied the Pelicans last year in the 8th seed, so they didn't make the playoffs. But Russell Westbrook is an animal. I think he's a top 10 player. I think that the Thunder is the only team with two top. I'd say Russell Westbrook's probably a top 6 player, and KD's probably the 2nd best. So 2nd best player, probably the 6th best player in Russell Westbrook because he was in the He was in the top 5 MVP race last year. So they also got Enes Kanter. Who am I missing? I'm missing someone big, I know. They got, what's his name? Serge Ibaka, that's it. I couldn't remember his name. Serge Ibaka is great defensive player. You know, this team is just, they're definitely going to come back next year with KD. KD can also possibly be another MVP candidate next season, coming back off of his injury. First seed. It's everyone's favorite. I didn't want to say it because I'm not a Spurs fan, but I mean, just look at him. LaMarcus Aldridge, really, they already had a good team. They already were a top 3 team in the West. Tim Duncan, obviously, he's the most consistent player in the league, even at his age. Tony Parker, he can. Tony Parker, he's on and off player because of he is getting older, but he can still be that Tony Parker that he was in his prime. Maybe not exactly the same, but he's still good. And obviously Kawhi Leonard, the best perimeter defender in the league. He was defensive player last year. Kawhi Leonard's real good. You know, and they have Greg Popovich, the best coach in the league. You know, Spurs, man, they're a real good team. I think they'll be the best team in the league next year. They're so good. Alright, gonna move on to the playoffs. Start off in the East Conference, round 1. So the matchups are the Cavs versus the Pacers, the Hawks versus the Raptors, the Heat versus the Wizards, and the Bucks versus the Bulls. I'm going to start with the Cavs versus the Pacers. I said Cavs in 6, just because, you know, they're the better team, obviously. But I do think the Pacers can push it to 6 games, just because, remember those battles with Paul George and LeBron James when he was on the Heat, and Paul George were at number 24 when he was still healthy. You know, those are real fun to watch. Paul George versus LeBron James. I think we'll see it again this year. I think the Cavs will be the 1st seed, and I do think the Pacers will be the 8th. So I think this should be fun to watch. First round of the playoffs. But yeah, I'm gonna have to give the nod to the Cavs. I do think Paul George is gonna give it his all, and I do think he can push it to 6. But I don't think they can pull it off. So Cavs in 6. And then we got the Hawks versus the Raptors. I said Hawks in 5 just because they're the better team. Plain and simple. I don't think the Raptors are good enough to pull it off. They got swept last year by the Wizards, and they did have a lot of injuries last year, I know that, but this year I do think they can maybe win a game, not get swept this year, like last year. But I said Hawks in 5, so moving on. Heat versus the Wizards. I think this will be a game 7. This will go to 7 games. D. Wade, John Wall, star players of these franchises. But I did say Heat in 7. I do think the Heat is the better team, the better roster. They got a better bench, more experience. John Wall, he's very good, but I don't think the Wizards will be able to beat the Heat. Moving on. Bucks versus the Bulls. I said Bulls in 7 just because they do have more experience, but I do love the Bucks. I do love their team, but they're very young. They don't have much experience. D. Rose, his health. Even without D. Rose, I think the Bulls can beat them. If they do have a healthy D. Rose, maybe it goes to 6 games. I don't know, but I said Bulls in 7. Okay, moving on to the West, we have the Spurs versus the Suns, Thunders versus the Pelicans, Clippers versus the Grizzlies, and Warriors versus the Rockets. Spurs versus the Suns, it's a clean sweep in my opinion. Suns, they're a decent team, but they're nowhere near the Spurs level of experience, of talent, of everything. I just think the Spurs it'll be easy series for the Spurs. Suns will obviously give a good effort, but I don't think they're good enough yet. So Thunder versus the Pelicans, I said Thunder in 5. I do think maybe Anthony Davis and the Pelicans can pull off a win, maybe 2, but I don't know. I'm going to say Thunder in 5, just because KD and Russell Westbrook are on a mission to get a finals together, go to the finals together and win. So I think this will be an easy win for them, just because the Pelicans, they don't really have a great roster. Anthony Davis, potential MVP next year, but I think the Thunder can take care of them pretty easily in a series. Clippers versus the Grizzlies. This should be a great series. Probably would be my favorite series to watch, because I'm a huge Memphis fan, other than Boston. But I did say Clippers in 7, just because they have a better bench, a better coach, and I wouldn't say a better starting 5, but I don't know. I just think they definitely have a better point guard, and Chris Paul. I do like Mike Conley, but point guard is an important position, and I think Chris Paul, he's sick of not getting past the second round, so he's also going to be on a mission this year, because they tried so hard to get DeAndre back, and they did. So now this is their year, or in their eyes, it's their year. So I think the Clippers will beat the Grizzlies in 7 games. I do think it will be a good series to watch. Warriors versus the Rockets. I said Warriors in 7 just because they are the reigning champs. They do have Steph Curry. They do have Klay Thompson. They do have Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, Andre Iguodala. They just have, and more and more. And Steve Kerr, great coach, first-year coach, best team in the league. And then the Rockets. Just don't think they're gonna be able to make it as far as they did last year. Dwight Howard, health issues. I don't know. Just it's one of those things. First round, 2 really good teams going up against each other. One of them has to go. So I say Warriors win. Rockets lose in the first round. Now we're going to the East semifinals. The matchups are the Cavs versus the Bulls and the Hawks versus the Heat. So I think the Cavs will beat the Bulls in 5. Yes. Cavs are a much better team. They're just the best team in the East, and I don't think the Bulls, in my mind, I'm predicting D Rose probably won't be healthy. I hope he's healthy, but I don't know. I don't think the Bulls can beat the Cavs in a series. So I said Cavs in 5. Cavs are just so much better, I'm not a Cavs fan, but you gotta admit it. Semifinals, Hawks versus the Heat. I said the Heat in 6 just because I think they're a better team. I think if D-Wade is healthy, along with Chris Bosh, along with Hassan Whiteside, Dragic, they're a legit team. And I know the Hawks are too. I think this would be a pretty interesting series. But the Hawks, they don't have a star player. They don't have that star player to push them in the postseason. So I don't think they could handle the Heat their full healthy roster, I don't think they could beat them. So Heat in 6. The West semifinals, we got the Spurs versus the Warriors and the Thunder versus the Clippers. I got Spurs versus Warriors, Spurs in 7. I think this should be a pretty good series. Definitely go to 7 games, but the Spurs, man, like I said, they're an amazing team. And, obviously the Warriors, reigning defending champs, but I don't know, man. I think they had a cakewalk last year in the playoffs. They went up against Pelicans, easy team. They went up against the Grizzlies, who were dealing with injuries. They went against the Rockets, dealing with injuries, and they went against the Cavs, dealing with injuries. So, yeah, they are the reigning defending champs, but they did kind of have an not easy, but kind of easy cakewalk to the finals. But if they go up against the Spurs in the semifinals, I have no doubt that the Spurs could beat them. So Spurs in 7. And then we got the Thunder versus the Clippers. Yes, I did say Thunder in 7. Again, Chris Paul not being able to make it out of the second round. It's just what I think. The KD and Russell Westbrook they're amazing together. They're on a whole nother level, and they're on a mission. I think they could handle the Clippers. I think it would be a great series, but I would give my nod to the Thunder and say Thunder in 7. Eastern Conference Finals, Cavs versus the Heat. This would be a very cool series because obviously LeBron was with the Heat for 4 years, won 2 titles. It would be a very cool series to watch. But I gave it Cavs in 6, and I think they will move on to the finals. I think they'll win in Miami in Game 6. And, there's not much to say. I just think the Cavs are a better team. That's all. I do think the Heat can win a couple of games, but other than that, they won't make it to the finals without LeBron. They're going against LeBron, and LeBron with the Cavs is going to win. So, Western Conference Finals, Spurs versus the Thunder. This would be another great series, but I said Spurs in 7, just because they got more experience and they got a better coach and just a better overall roster. They don't have 2 superstars like the Thunder, but they have more players. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just think the Spurs are the better team here, and I think it would be a great series. The Thunder probably would have a chance of winning, but I don't know. Something's telling me Spurs in 7 against this team. NBA Finals. This is what a lot of people are predicting. The Cavs are everyone's favorite. Spurs are everyone's favorite. It's pretty cliche, but it's just, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the teams, but they're the best teams. I think they'll go head to head in the finals. And my choice was, drum roll, the Spurs. I think this will be Timmy's last year, and I think with the addition of LaMarcus, this team is just amazing. Just look at them right there. Kawhi, Tony Parker, Manu, they got Pop, great coach. I think the Spurs will pull it off. The Spurs, ever since they had Tim Duncan, the Spurs were always in discussion to be a finals contender. And I think they can win it this year. So, like I said, that's just my opinion. Everything in this video is just my opinion. Thanks for watching. I'd like to see some comments to see if you agree, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Also, if you could give a thumbs up, maybe subscribe, that'd be cool. This is my first video. Let me know how it is. Let me know what I did good, what I did bad. yeah, so thanks for watching.